When the British television unit made a report that set the world on fire about the famine and disease which was affecting 1.5 million people in Ethiopia, the report was made from a town called Dessie, which is about 100 kilometers south of where we are now, at the foot of Mount Gamshat. In this spot here, there are 420 people who are refugees from the villages up there in the hills. Naturally enough, the emergency units from Germany, from Britain, from the International Emergency Relief Services and the Ethiopian government themselves, these together have saved thousands of lives. And it had been thought that that was the end of it. But tribesmen are still coming in from the tracks up there in the mountains around about us. And it's not yet known how many are dead up there. The experts reckon that about a third of the population are dead, and a third have been affected with famine. Communication systems in Ethiopia are not good and present enormous problems and expense. Nevertheless, despite warnings and downright opposition from their own government officials, the Australian medical team of 2 doctors and 2 nurses travelled into the bush. Remember, the country is 3 times the size of France, it's half the size of Western Australia, the population is 26 million, and 1.6 million need help. So the doctors took food and medical supplies direct from Australia on the spot. The hospital was a 3-room mud and cow dung house. The whole range of disease had been forced to the surface by shocking long-range famine, and real qualified men and women with equipment, drugs and food, they were the only ones of any use. The plight of the children stirred the world to real compassion, and it was to the children first that the doctors came. They brought food and medicine, and the sick responded quickly. Doctor, what's wrong with this little boy?
Well, Solomon's suffering from very severe malnutrition, as you can see, and in addition to this he's got tuberculosis, abdominal tuberculosis, which is slowing his recovery down, and he needs a lot of intensive care. He's been on intravenous fluids for the last 48 hours, and we're just starting him off on a light milk diet.
Will he live?
Oh, he'll live all right, but what standard of health he'll enjoy is doubtful unless there's some continuing care which is brought on. This lady has got a small child who's, again, very undernourished and weak, and you can see here that he's got a number. See his ankles and feet are swollen.
And sores.
And he's got infected ulcers here, suffering from protein deficiency. You see how lax and loose the skin is, dehydrated. There's nothing there at all. He might struggle on, but whether reach maturity is doubtful. The infant mortality here is very high.
In the first 3 weeks of their work, not one baby died. Amazingly simple medical procedures of intravenous drips, regular attention, the next best thing to hygiene, with a gentle compassion, and then the miracle of a baby's cry after hours of deadly silence.
Electrolytes are all out of order.
And next door, this...
Looks like things work, doesn't it?
He's very satisfied with himself, actually.
But I know that looks like, what, a baby who's a week,
well,
a few days old.
He's about 8 to 10 weeks, this little girl. Although you'd never believe it.
Is this due to neglect, or is it due to malnutrition, or is it due to disease?
It's due to a mixture of both, not to any conscious neglect on the part of the parents, I don't think. There just isn't food around. This baby is being breastfed, but it's too weak to take it and is vomiting it back. It's got quite a severe chest infection, and probably because it's swallowing a lot of the phlegm, this is also retarding its development to quite a marked degree.
They are both very sick.
Oh, they certainly are.
Without medical attention?
Well, I think chances of survival of these children was virtually nil.
It was reckoned a week or 2 ago that everything is, when we were together in that camp in Dessie,
yes,
that everything was all right. But
yes, well, it's obviously not all right. We've been going to villages on mule back And we've been finding a lot of people like this, not only in this age group, but adults, 18 to 25-year-olds who are lying in their huts and absolutely dehydrated and left to...
They've got disease too.
Well, some have disease and some are thought to have disease, and of course the villagers shun them because of this. They give them water, but they don't come near it because they think they'll catch the same disease.
In fact, these free enterprise farmers of Ethiopia are a hardy lot. Basically, their resistance is enormous. Normally, they work hard and well and support their families well. They're intelligent. But the silent, deadly war of famine and then disease forced them to walk mile upon mile from the most isolated districts simply to get help. And when they first reached the roads, there was no help for them. Villagers drove them away. 800 to 900 people died in the main street of this one village of Wergesa. That was until the authorities realized the vast extent of the national disaster. And the story throughout the area is repeated 1,000 times. The story will be told again and again tonight and tomorrow night and for years to come.
Because
he lost his farm.
His farm? What about his family?
ልጆቹስ ቤተሰቦቹ?
ሸግሮ መጣን እዚህ ሞቱ ሁለቱ።
They had 2 children.
2 children dead. What about his wife?
ሚስቴና አንድ ልጅ አለች።
She's here.
What's he going to do when he leaves here?
አሁን ምንድነው ምን ታደርጋለህ?
ሸግሮኝ ነው ተቀመጥኩት።
He got nothing to do.
He's got nothing in the world.
Nothing. He lost his farm.
Any children?
Yeah, died. 2 children died. And his wife is here.
His food at the farm, what happened to it?
ምን ሆኖ ነው እንትናችሁ? እርሻችሁ?
አሩኗል።
It never rains.
For how long?
ለስንት ጊዜ ነው ያልዘነበው?
7 ዓመት ይሆናል።
Oh, 6-7 years.
There is food there today thanks to what compassionate people throughout the world have done. It's very simple to keep them fed. Of course, these people have known sickness for centuries, but never before had such long terms, smashing blows of no rain, poor crops, and death both of animals and people rocked hundreds and hundreds of square miles. The diet always is very simple. It's a cereal pancake of flour and fermented teff with a handful of hot-peppered anything for taste. It's very simple, but in ordinary times it's sufficient to support life for hard-working people. Without it, some had tried to live on crushed weed seeds, and it tasted like bitter charcoal. So the soup, milk and food from Australian men, women and children began to save life in the outback of Ethiopia at the beginning of December. And at the same time, this ridiculously small team of 2 doctors and 2 nurses tackled typhus, cholera, tuberculosis, dehydration, sores, malnutrition, and diseases which only specialists could diagnose. Fortunately, David Watkin is a specialist. They planned every item of medical equipment with their friends back in Australia, and every item paid off. Along with Ethiopian helpers, on the spot they found medical miracles. Of course, doctors won't use the word miracle. Still, for some, everything given was too late. Much more was needed, and it's still needed now, in medical teams and food and money for transport, communications, supplies, buildings. But before these come, people do die, whatever happens. This woman is 35. She's dying, and she will leave behind 2 young children. Dr. Fisher, why hasn't she gone to hospital before?
Well, John, there isn't a hospital here. The nearest hospital is about 65 kilometres over very rough roads, and it'll be absolute lunacy to try and drive her that distance. She'd most certainly die. I mean, she's dying, but the point is that this would make a definite...
We kill her quicker, that's what you're saying.
That's right.
It's through famine and it's through disease which she's got as a result of being weak.
Yes, I think her main problem is malnutrition, and she then, because of her generalized ability, she caught this infection, which is a meningitis, purulent type of meningitis, which is...
Doctor, she's dying, you knew she was dying, and yet you're giving her attention now when there are all those children out there who need your attention.
Well, I mean, this is part of our job. We don't...
Well, to those people who say let them die, why do you bother?
No, apart from anything else, the patient is in a serious condition and is dehydrated and needs fluids, even just to make her feel comfortable.
All right, let me put it another way. If you had a hospital here, could you have saved her?
I think so. I think with a proper medical care, with the proper facilities to investigate this patient and the problems, with the possibility of doing a tracheostomy and so many other things which I could tell you about now that could be done, yes, I think there would be a good chance to save her.
And save the children from being orphans and take her out of this hellhole. Would you call this a hellhole?
Yes, I would call this a hell.
Stinks. There are fleas.
I've never seen anything like it in my life.
For everybody who sits home complacent, she's going to die in an hour or so.
Yes. The children will have to be taken care of. And,
But she'll be gone.
She'll be gone for them.
So, when the parents die, the orphans have to be looked after. But everyone who gave to help in Ethiopia ought to know that the sacrifice they made before Christmas 1973 has kept at least 60 very young men and women alive, and in the process, although it was not the main intent, has turned 60 young Ethiopians into friends of Australia who actually know where the country is and who Australians are. Is this the stuff which came from Australia?
Yes, this is all from the children of Western Australia, the school children.
6.
How often do you make it?
Oh, every day it goes with their what? It's a fluid that they put on their injera. It's a bread-type substance that covers their plates.
You've worked with the Australian doctors now.
Yeah, yeah.
What are they like?
I can say they have done their best because they were seeing 70 to 80 patients per day, and they were going up into the mountains and seeing the patient inside their homes, and they were treating them there.
Were they needed here?
Yeah, definitely.
Had you any doctors before?
Here,
Okay, sir. Have you got your own doctor?
yeah, there was one Ethiopian doctor here
When?
when 15 days back. And he stayed here for 2 weeks only, and he went back to Addis.
You haven't had doctors in Verghese before?
Yeah, no doctors.
For all these people?
Yeah.
These are children who've been in the hospital or need special medical attention?
Yeah, yeah.
How many have you had?
There are about 10.
10 who are very sick?
Yeah.
But there are more than 10 children here, aren't there? The others are?
They are orphans. The others are orphans.
No mother or father?
Yeah, no mother.
And where do
father.
they come from? I know it's not the village.
From
is it?
different places.
Up in the mountains?
Yeah, up in the mountains and down there.
In the valleys? All over?
Yeah.
What's going to happen to them?
What can happen to them
What's
in the
going to
future?
happen to them? Yeah.
In the future?
Yeah.
No one knows.
But we do know what can happen through so little from our own country in so short a time. The first medical team has been replaced by 4 doctors and 4 nurses. They are all volunteers. More will go from Australia in a few days' time. Builders will go from Perth to build a proper medical centre in place of the cow dung house. There are men throughout the country, all volunteers, who in fact pay for their replacements. They're professionals, and professionals are the ones who must go, men and women who know how to transport the sick over bad roads in extreme emergencies and keep them alive. The shock tonight is that people in this country, and even, it must be admitted, in Ethiopia, do not know that what happened only 4 months ago will happen again. And in a few weeks' time, it could be worse, in fact, far worse. Your home is in Addis Ababa,
Yes,
and you've come 600 kilometers to see this.
yes.
Did you know it was as bad as this? You know, living in Addis, did you know that people were dying?
Oh, no,
You were not told.
no.
But now that they have come to help,
Yes.
what do you want?
Well, there is so trouble here that we need your doctors. And if the situation gets worse, many people will die.
Well, I think they need an all-embracing involvement here. They need medical care, they need public health measures, and they need it on a long term. It's no good coming in for 6 weeks or 8 weeks and then going and leaving these children, because they'll just go back to the state they were originally. It needs a program of several years, 5 years, 6 years, with a continued presence, and an awful lot could be done with very little expenditure of money.
So all the tales that, you know, no more help's needed is really not on.
Help is needed desperately. If I could stay here for a year, I would. I wish
And
I
out in the
could.
bush, it may even be worse than
Well, it
this.
may be a lot worse, and in fact we know that further out in the desert plains there's an extreme emergency even now where the Germans are working.
Do you think the doctors coming here have saved lives?
Certainly. Yeah,
For sure. And the nurses?
yeah.
It's amazing that international alignments and personality differences between diplomatic officials should hinder and even take steps to stop the volunteer work which is being done. Qualified men and women have come to this country to help, for nothing, remember, and for certainly no political implication. In very simple terms, for the price of return fares to and from your city, doctors could continue to come for a month or better 2 months or even longer. The volunteers are ready to come to the outback of Ethiopia and help to save the life of these people. In the scruffy little town, for 60 Ethiopian dollars, a hospital could be established. That's 60 Ethiopian dollars a month. For an area in which 10,000 people live, for $60 a month, a hospital could be established. Less than half the money which was raised by 750,000 Australian people could provide a long-term plan of life-saving and health which would not, as some inhuman people suggest, overpopulate the country, but which would eventually eradicate typhus, VD, and all the other killers which make these people shadows of what they ought to be. If you have a right to live, then they have a right to live too.